What's going on, Summoners? Welcome back to another ProGuides video. I'm Kangas, and today I'm talking about 5 sleeper OP picks and builds that you should be abusing for some free LP. You probably already know the popular OP picks and builds since they're all over YouTube, but in this video, we're looking at some of the lesser known builds that can take your opponents by surprise. So hit that sub button, and let's get into it. First up on our list of sleeper OP builds, we have Crit Jax. This one's a bit more on the fun side, but it is still pretty viable. You just need to realize that by building crit items, you will not have all the extra beefiness that you normally get from standard bruiser items. But that's not to say that you're a total glass cannon either. The shield proc from Immortal Shield Bow helps quite a bit, plus Jax gets a good chunk of resistance from his ult anyway. Specifically, he gets a lot of armor. On top of it giving 70 flat armor at max rank, it also has a 50% bonus AD ratio. So all these high damage items will end up giving you ridiculous durability against AD foes, at least for the duration of the ult. And being that it lasts 8 seconds, odds are with this build's ridiculous damage, any opponent should be dead within that window. The key components to this build are Essence Reaver and Navori Quick Blades. ER's Spellblade effect synergizes perfectly with Jax's W, while Navori's cooldown reduction on crit leads you to constantly having E available, making Jax even more unduelable than he normally is. But now let's go over the build itself. For items, you'll start off with a Doran's Blade, then build into Essence Reaver first. For boots, you'll generally want to pick up Plated Steel Caps or Merc Treads, though Berserker Greaves is an option if you want even more damage. After that, pick up your Immortal Shield Bow. You'll also need some attack speed to make Jax work, so after this, build into Phantom Dancer, and then go for the item that brings it all together, Navori Quick Blades. For max damage, you want to top things off with Infinity Edge, although there may be games where you need Mercurial Scimitar or some other situational item. But again, this is a bit of a forerunner build, and what's more fun than bonking people with insanely hard-hitting crits? For runes, you'll want to run Conqueror, Triumph, Alacrity, Last Stand, Taste of Blood, and Ravenous Hunter, with the stat runes being Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. If you want a bit more security for laning phase, you could also go Biscuit Delivery, Time Warp Tonic, and then start Corrupting Potion over D-Blade instead. But I want to clarify that a lot of what makes sleeper OP picks so successful is the fact that nobody plays them. Objectively speaking, they may not be better than or even as good as the most popular picks, but when your opponents don't know how to play against these, you get the extra edge in the fight. But that alone is not going to win you all of your solo queue games, especially as you get higher up the ladder. You also need to have the skills to get those early leads and the know-how to use those leads to win your games. And that's where we come in. At ProGuides.com, we got courses from all your favorite streamers and pros like CoreJJ, Aframu, and Xmithy to help you understand how to play your role. And if you want a more personalized one-on-one experience, we also have top-tier coaches available 24/7 to help you anytime you want it. If any of those sound interesting to you, come check us out. But now, back to the video. Up next, we have full-on AP Assassin Gragas. Gragas has a negative win rate in the jungle overall, but when you build him full damage, his win rate kinda skyrockets, up to about 57 to 58%. So why does it make such a big difference? Well, the build is of course situational, but it's pretty impactful. You go Night Harvester into Zhonya's Hourglass and Morellonomicon. The logic is, Night Harvester is your early burst damage, and the following items help you keep doing more damage over time, but mostly just give you added beefiness. The extra HP and stasis make you a more reliable form of engage without you getting immediately blown up. We often talk about how jack-of-all-trades champs can often just fall flat in League. You're usually better off picking somebody that's strongly specialized at one thing, and that's exactly what happens here. When you end up going for the more bruiser-ish build on Gragas, you don't really have the damage to one-shot anybody with your combo, so not even any carries have to be that afraid. But at the same time, you're not nearly as beefy as a standard tank, so you're limited in how hard you can force engages as a frontliner. And once your flash is down, it's pretty hard to be useful for the next 5 minutes, so you better hope that engage counts. But when you go full AP, you don't have to worry about finding those perfect engage windows. All you need is to find a chance to get onto any target of your choice. AD carries, mages, enchanters, even some of the squishier bruisers are all champions that you can potentially one-shot. So let's take a look at the actual build that you need to start one-shotting as the Fat Man. For your items, you'll start off with Hailblade, then pick up an early Dark Seal, and build into a Night Harvester and Sork Shoes. And if you're already snowballing, go ahead and upgrade Dark Seal into Mejai's Soul Stealer now. If not, wait to do it till after you pick up your next item, Lich Bane. Top off your build with Void Staff and Rabadons for max damage. If for some reason you can't keep Mejai stacked up, then you can also replace it, but come on, don't be a coward. And if you want to have even more fun, go Horizon Focus instead of Zhonya's, cause Glass Cannon is the way. Oh, by the way, this entry is assuming that you're playing Gragas in the jungle, but the exact same build works for lane as well, especially in the mid lane. Just start Doran's Ring over Hailblade, pretty obviously. For runes, you'll run either Electrocute or Dark Harvest, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, Relentless Hunter, Absolute Focus, and Gathering Storm, with the stat runes being Double Adaptive Force and Armor. Up next is another champion that usually gets played as a bruiser, but today is appearing as an assassin. That champ is Jarvan. Unlike Gragas, J4's bruiser build is still perfectly fine to the point that it easily makes him a solid A tier jungler, or at least a strong B tier pick. So this build isn't so much a way to make him work, kinda like Gragas, but more just an alternative playstyle. You will be going full glass cannon, stacking up as much AD and armor pen as you possibly can for some massive one-shots. Jarvan was already a pretty strong early game champ, but one of his issues is that he falls off compared to the more meta picks such as Xin Zhao and Lee Sin in that regard. But the buffs on this patch help him use an early lead to snowball a lot harder. Now for the build itself, you'll be starting with Ember Knife and then build into Duskblade as your mythic. Prowler's Claw works as an alternative and does give better 1v1 burst, but Duskblade helps you get a bit more consistent in fights. Plus its added damage on first auto synergizes pretty well with your passive. For boots, you'll go for one of the tank options most of the time, though Lucidity Boots works too if you want to maximize your CDR for even more dunking. After that, go for Serpent's Fang, Edge of Night, and Serilda's Grudge. Your last item is up to you based on your game situation, but generally you'll want a Guardian Angel. For runes, run Electrocute, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, Relentless Hunter, Triumph, and Coup de Grace, with Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor 4 stat runes. And sticking with the trend that we have so far for our sleeper OPs this patch, we got another full damage build, this time for Nunu. The premise of this build is hitting opponents hard and fast, using the movement speed from the items that you'll be building alongside with Phase Rush to stick to opponents, lock them down, and then erase them with your ult. Like most Glass Cannon jungle builds, this is another Feast or Famine build, but when you're ahead on full AP Nunu, he is particularly oppressive, with little to no counterplay for any immobile champions on the enemy team. And it's surprisingly easy to get into the game for such a snowbally champ too. Nunu is one of the easiest champions to do repeat ganks with, so you can just roll snowball after snowball into whatever enemy lane you choose until you start picking up kills. Just make sure you don't neglect clearing your camps as well between pitching your tents. In the mid to late game, you'll constantly try to make picks on target. You can 100 to 0 pretty much any target that doesn't have a way to stop your W or ult. But being so squishy, you won't really be capable of engaging 5v5s later in the game. You'll just get blown up before you even reach any threats that you can burst down. But that doesn't mean that there's no way for you to fight around objectives. If the enemies are in a position where they have to come face check an objective, you can charge up a massive ult and devastate their entire team. Nunu's ult already has a huge base damage of 1,275 at max rank when fully charged, so when you add on the huge 250% AP ratio, that means that pretty much any champ that isn't a full tank stacking MR will get deleted. Now for the build, your items will start with Hailblade, then pick up an early Dark Seal and build into Night Harvester and Sork Shoes. Upgrade Seal to Magi, then build Cosmic Drive, Void Staff, and Rabadon's Death Cap. For your runes, you'll go Phase Rush, Nimbus Cloak, Celerity, Water Walking, Cheap Shot, and Relentless Hunter, with the stat runes being Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. Now you may have noticed that all 4 of these first entries have been Glass Cannon versions of champs that are traditionally played as beefy frontliners. So for today's question, I gotta ask, what are other champions that we missed that you like to play as off-meta Glass Cannons? One of my personal favorites is full AD lethality Scion, especially in ARAMs. You hit somebody with an ult, charge up a Q, and they are dead. But let me know your answers in the comments down below. Now finishing off our list, we have Camille as a mid laner. Everyone already knows how OP Camille is in the top lane, but everything that makes her good there makes her insane in the mid lane. To start off, Camille is just an incredibly dominant laner. She has a tool for pretty much every situation, and she's especially good at stomping out the melee mid laners that are ruling the current mid lane meta. Not to overgeneralize, but those melee mid laners pretty much all follow the same pattern. They have really bursty trades, but can do little to an opponent once they run out of cooldowns. So if you can just survive their opening combo, most of the time you're able to turn the fight on them. And with Camille, it is incredibly easy to do that. Her passive shield helps mitigate a good chunk of the damage, while you have plenty of burst rate of your own with your Q. But you ain't done there. You can also follow them with your E, taking a more extended fight for an even better trade in your favor. Yeah, there's plenty of other picks that are good at hard countering assassins in lane. For example, Garen and Renekton also do a pretty good job, or maybe even better in the early game. But even when fed, those champions can struggle to hard carry games. Meanwhile, Camille's just a 1v9 kind of champ. She wins lane and has incredible scaling, able to 1v1 whoever her lane opponent is at all stages of the game, as well as just generally being a super strong diver in teamfights. So let's take a look at the build. For items, you'll start off with the Doran's Blade, then build into Divine Sunderer. If you need offensive boots, either option is fine, otherwise just go for Lucidity. After that, build into Ravenous Hydra, Sterix Gauge, and whatever 2 situational items you may need. Chempuk Chainsword and GA are good defaults for the last slot, but you can decide what goes there for yourself. For your runes, go Conqueror, Triumph, Alacrity, Last Stand, Shield Bash, and Bone Plating, with the stat runes being Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. And that wraps things up for our sleeper OP builds that you're missing out on in patch 11.16. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you're subbed so you never miss out on our meta guides and you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Also, remember to let us know what champions you like to play as off-meta glass cannon carries in the comments down below. And while you're there, check out our Discord in the description box. That's it for today, so best of luck on the Rift, everybody. Stay hydrated, and I'll see you next time.